They said the signal was impossible. It came from coordinates beyond the mapped universe, somewhere no light should ever reach us from. The strangest part? It was broadcasting in perfect, uncorrupted English, and it was calling for help. The year was 2572, and Kepler Outpost 12 was about as far from the action as any human could be without falling into the dark between galaxies. It floated in the galactic fringe, half forgotten by Earth, maintained only because the Terran Science Directorate believed in scanning the void for anomalies. Most days that meant listening to static hiss through century-old antenna arrays. Most days, nothing happened. Today was not most days. Technician Arlen Moss was halfway through a lukewarm coffee when his console came alive with a clean, high-bandwidth burst of signal. No buildup, no distortion. It simply appeared perfect and sharp, as though it had always been there. The source coordinates alone made his skin crawl, well beyond the cosmic light horizon, the theoretical boundary beyond which space expands faster than light can travel. There was no way any particle, photon, or signal from that far could ever reach them. Not in the age of the universe, not ever, but this one had. He isolated the audio first. A voice emerged, deep and steady, the accent undeniably earthborn. "This is Commander Elias Vance, United Terran Navy, year 3031, requesting immediate extraction. If you can hear this, it's already too late." The voice repeated once before the message cut into pure data, a cascade of terabytes, compressed to near-instant delivery. Arlen's console screamed warnings about checksum validity, but the files were perfect, uncorrupted, intentionally sent. When the science team decrypted the packet, they stared in silence. The data contained engineering schematics, mathematics far beyond current human capability, and a complete blueprint for something labeled Fold Drive Mark III. The notation suggested instantaneous travel by bending higher dimensions, not merely space. The oldest scientist aboard, Dr. Aisha Marek, whispered the obvious. This is centuries ahead of us." The outpost commander, Captain Rena Hale, ordered every transmission line sealed. No unvetted communication would leave Kepler 12. This was no ordinary deep space anomaly. This was a message from humanity's own future, and it shouldn't exist. For 3 days, the crew worked without sleep, verifying the signal's origin. The coordinates didn't just place it beyond the edge of the galaxy, they placed it outside reality as they knew it. No background radiation, no stars, no cosmic dust, just an endless absence. Marek's models suggested that if the message really came from that point, it had traveled through some unknown medium, bypassing space-time entirely. The math was unstable, as if the equations themselves were resisting being written. Arguments broke out. Some wanted to send a probe. Others feared even acknowledging the signal might trigger some unknown reaction. The most superstitious among them spoke of predestination traps, closed causal loops that swallowed civilizations whole. By the end of the week, Captain Hale made her choice. They would send a probe. The probe Asterion was the fastest unmanned craft they had, equipped with a rudimentary jump drive. It couldn't travel anywhere near the signal's origin in normal terms, but the schematics in the message contained detailed coordinates for a fold aperture, a precise location in local space where a shortcut could be opened. Opening the aperture would sling the probe beyond the observable universe in a single jump. It was reckless. It was insane. It was, according to the math, the only way to reach the source. The Asterion launched. The aperture bloomed in silent brilliance, space itself peeling back to reveal a blackness deeper than the intergalactic void. The probe slipped through. For 42 minutes, nothing. Then the telemetry returned. The images were wrong. Not corrupted, wrong. The first frames showed an endless structure, a lattice of impossible scale, stretching across the void without horizon or curvature. No stars, no planets, only the structure, like a web spun between dimensions. Its surfaces gleamed faintly, but not from any light source they could name. As the probe drew closer, it found them. Pods. Thousands. Millions. Each one transparent, revealing a human figure suspended in a state between life and death. Some wore uniforms from centuries past, the old Terran navy blues of the 2100s. Others wore armor from wars that hadn't happened yet. Some wore rags and tunics of pre-industrial Earth. Each face was frozen in the same expression, eyes closed, mouth slack, as if caught in a single unending moment of sleep. One pod's occupant wore the insignia of Commander Elias Vance. Another was unmistakably Captain Rena Hale herself. The same features, the same faint scar over the right brow, the same woman, years older, lying motionless in the void. The probe's data stream shifted again, another burst of compressed files. The words were stamped across the header in English. "It's not a rescue mission. Don't let it find you." Then the Asterian's feed changed for the last time. The camera locked onto the far end of the structure, where the lattice bent and folded in on itself like origami collapsing. Something vast was moving there, not in the sense of a ship or a machine, but in the sense of a shadow that owned the space it touched. Its outline was undefined, its edges shifting like oil on water. The final telemetry contained no image of the thing itself, only the pods reacting to its approach. The figures inside trembled. Some opened their eyes. Their mouths moved in soundless screams. The feed cut. The crew of Kepler-12 sat in silence. There were no more arguments now, no more theories, just the growing certainty that whatever existed beyond the light horizon was aware of them. Then, on the 7th day since the first signal, every console in the outpost lit up at once. The same coordinates, the same impossible origin point. But this time, the voice was not Commander Vance's. It was Captain Hale's. "This is Captain Rena Hale, Kepler Outpost 12, requesting immediate extraction. If you can hear this, it's already too late." The voice looped, over and over. No one spoke. No one dared. Because the signal wasn't just coming from the impossible coordinates. It was also coming from inside their own systems. The science team ran a trace. The conclusion was worse than any nightmare. The broadcast was being generated by their own communications array, in real time, and transmitting into the fold aperture, which was opening. The aperture was not supposed to be active. The probe had been their only jump. The jump drive was cold. But the aperture bloomed anyway, vast and silent, at the edge of the outpost's sensor range. Through it came nothing. At least that's what their eyes told them. But every instrument screamed readings off the charts, detecting mass where there was none, heat where there was only void. And with it came the voice, louder now, as if moving closer through the signal itself. The captain ordered the aperture sealed, but the command failed. The fold space coordinates were hard-locked, overwritten by a process no one recognized. Even purging the system's core memory didn't stop it. On the main display, the aperture expanded until it filled the viewport. The blackness within was layered now, folding and refolding, shapes moving in its depths. And then, pods began to emerge. They drifted into real space like glass coffins, each carrying a human. Some wore Kepler uniforms. Some wore colonial garb from centuries past. Others looked like people from no era they could name. The pods were unpowered, yet they didn't drift aimlessly. They were being placed, arranged in a lattice pattern. The beginning of a new structure. Among the first pods was one containing Arlen Moss. Eyes closed, scar on his chin from the mess hall accident last year. Wearing the same clothes he had on now. He dropped his coffee. The captain gave the only order she could. Evacuate, burn the station, cut all transmissions. They didn't make it. Later, no one could say how much later, the outpost was gone, its place in the void empty. The official records showed no signal, no probe, no aperture. just another forgotten station lost to the silence of deep space. But far beyond the light horizon, the lattice grew, and somewhere in its depths, Commander Elias Vance's pod floated beside Captain Rena Hale's, their faces frozen in that same eternal stillness. From time to time, a signal would slip the boundaries of reality, finding its way to human ears. Always the same words, always in perfect English. If you can hear this, it's already too late.